Welcome back to Sports Hop. It's your boy, Mack B. I am in the building. You already know what time it is. We got another hot show for you. I am officially back in town from H-Town. Had a great time with that Mexican OT. Shout out to the whole family down there in Texas. And I got a special guest joining me today. I got my old school player partner. My boy Rashad is in the building. What's up, baby?
What's up, man?
How you doing, man?
All right. Good. Hey, I'm happy to be here, man.
Hey,
happy
man.
to be here.
We've been trying to make this happen for a minute,
Yes,
man. So
yes.
I'm excited, man. You on the couch, and we're going to chop it up, man. We got a lot to talk about, so we're going to dive right in, family. We're going to start off with the NBA playoff / play-in tournament.
Right.
Our Los Angeles Lakers are going up against the New Orleans Pelicans. I think they dodged a bullet here. I think that they match up pretty good with New Orleans, and it's a one-game, scenario, right? It's win, but silver lining is if they don't win, they play the winner of the 9 and 10 game, the Warriors and the Kings. But we'll focus with the Lakers and the Pelicans. I personally think that they can pull it off. They did beat New Orleans today and look rather impressive doing it. LeBron, AD, I think that they have the matchup advantage over New Orleans. What are your thoughts?
I think so, too. My biggest thing is, though, Mac, AD.
Right.
Can he stay healthy?
Right.
Because they're actually worried about him, playing this next game because he left the game with an injury. So, AD, please wear high top shoes. I don't know why he doesn't wear high top shoes.
I don't know why all the NBA doesn't wear high top shoes
to protect those ankles.
Right.
Man, right. So my biggest thing is AD.
Right.
So can he stay healthy? And if he is healthy, can we get that consistent performance we got today? And great performances we've had in the past of AD. This year. So that's my biggest thing is everything runs through him. LeBron is old, bro. Even though LeBron is still playing at a high level, right? He's still playing at a very high level.
Except for on the defensive end.
Right. Except for the defensive end.
I play some more defense, King.
Right. But it all boils down to AD, and can everybody else be consistent from the three-point line, especially D-Russ?
Well, D'Angelo Russell, he's hot and cold, right?
Right.
When he's on, he's on.
Mm-hmm.
When he's off, like a light switch, right?
Right.
So we got to have more consistency out of him. Austin Reeves, I think, is always showing up and playing hard. I love Austin Reeves. I love him. So, keep doing your thing. Yeah. Keep balling out there, Austin. But, we got the bench has to contribute. I mean, Anthony Davis has to stay healthy.
Right.
Will the real AD please stand up and don't go sit out on the bench because you're hurt? But I think that the Lakers can pull it off. Props to the Pelicans, though. They had a better year than I thought. Zion lost some weight. He looks a lot more mobile on the inside. He's moving more with more agility and athleticism. So I like what he's doing from that perspective. CJ McCollum is always a problem. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not going to sleep on the Pelicans, but I do believe from a talent perspective and a size matchup, I think that the Lakers have the advantage, especially inside. So hopefully they can get it together. The key is, can they make the perimeter shots to open up the inside for AD?
Right.
And see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm. And I agree, Mac. Like I said, that ball, to me, it all boils down to consistent shooting.
Right.
And can AD dominate the paint? If we can do those things, we'll win this game.
And if and when they do win, which I believe they will, we got the Denver Nuggets waiting on them boys, and that's another subject for another day. We gonna slow down and pump the brakes, but it's not gonna be easy
at all.
Okay,
at all.
That celebration gonna be short lived. Y'all better get focused. Okay. Moving on, let's talk about the 9-10 matchup in the West. We got the Golden State Warriors facing the Sacramento Kings. The Warriors got to go on the road. And going to Sacramento. That's not really a road game, though.
No.
That's literally like less than 100 miles away.
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
From the Bay Area. So they're going to have a lot of Warrior fans rolling up there deep. Shout out to the Warriors, though, because, after the All-Star break, they did play some decent basketball. They got Draymond Green back into the mix. Steph Curry is always doing Steph Curry-like things. Klay Thompson stepped up his game big time.
He has. Shout out to him, too, because after those two gruesome injuries, he's back-to-back years a couple years ago. He hasn't been the same player.
Right.
I'm glad to see Clay coming back to his own. He won't be the Clay of old, but
True.
Just happy to see him, play some good basketball.
Yeah, and I also think that, if he can stay healthy, Chris Paul is an excellent complementary piece with his playoff experience and leadership on the floor. So don't sleep on Chris Paul. I know he's been injury prone as well, but I think he can be a key factor if they are to make like a deep playoff run. I don't anticipate that happening, but I wouldn't be surprised. Not to mention some key role players, Jonathan Kuminga, Podziemski, out of Santa Clara. He can shoot the basketball, and he's young. He's a rookie. But I think the Warriors have some momentum. I personally believe, Rashad, that they're going to go up into Sacramento, and I think they're going to win that game. The Kings have just looked terrible lately. They've been losing. It's been an epidemic out there in Sacktown. De'Aaron Fox, who's always a major factor, he's been balling. And Sabonis has been balling, the king of the double-double, right? Shout out to In-N-Out, by the way. You know about that, right? But you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're
I had to drop that reference. But, I think that the Kings are in trouble. I think Mike Brown is going to be on the hot seat, especially if they don't get out of that play-in tournament. I'm not saying he's going to lose his job, but he's going to be on the radar. He's going to be definitely under the microscope. But Sacramento, to me, has played lackluster basketball, particularly like the last month of the year.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Here's the thing. Here's my biggest thought. Can Green be tamed? Can his attitude be tamed?
Good point. I think after missing those games and then actually getting some help, I still see the old Draymond in flashes, but he doesn't take it to that upper echelon where he's getting thrown out of every game.
Because the last time he saw Sac, he got kicked out of that game.
He did.
In Sac.
Yeah.
So
he stomped on the chest and then got kicked out.
Right. So can Draymond's attitude be tamed? That's my question for you.
That's a great question, and I got an even better answer. I believe that he knows what's on the line.
Okay.
Because that Warrior team, as great as they have been over the years, they did have a dynasty.
Yes, they did.
This is their final run right here with that core group, right?
I agree.
I don't believe we're going to see that nucleus be playing at a certain level and all be assembled together. I think that Golden State eventually has to look at other options. They got to get younger.
Yep.
I still believe in Klay Thompson. I believe in Steph Curry, one of the greatest shooters to ever play the game.
The greatest shooter.
Exactly. Yeah, he is the greatest.
Yeah.
But, it's all about the role players and what can happen from the bench, because every now and then, Steph Curry is entitled to have an off game. As much as we hate to see it, he's still human at the end of the day, right? And Klay Thompson has stepped up his game, particularly this season. He's played and been balling, especially the last 6 to 8 weeks of the year. He's playing defense. His points per game has risen. I think Steve Kerr has done a good job with the rotation out there in the Bay Area, but I think with the playoff pedigree and the championship pedigree, I would not be surprised if Golden State wins the play-in tournament and then gives whoever they face a tough matchup. But they don't have a lot of size. That's my concern.
That's been their
down
issue
low.
That's been their issue, though, Mac, for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Absolutely.
That was their issue when they played us last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they played us in the second round? Was that the first or second round?
And the Lakers dominated that series.
And we dominated that series because of the size advantage. So that's my biggest thing with Golden State. Now, that's where Sac does have an advantage.
They got size down
can
low.
go to work inside. Now, if Sabonis get off, we might see a hell of a game then, because, like I said, that's the X factor. Sabonis inside, because they don't have anybody that can account for him.
Right.
So
I think he's a key factor, but I also think hopefully Malik Monk will be able to play because he's a key factor with that Kings rotation, and also De'Aaron Fox being able to open up the floor and penetrate and get to the rim. He's a beast, inside as well. So it's going to be interesting. You know, I think from a playoff experience and a big game experience component, I think the Warriors clearly have an advantage over the Kings. The Kings are a young, rising team, but they have underachieved this season. Make no mistake about it. Last year was the total opposite, right? Man, nobody saw them coming, right?
No, and that's why I think this year I was surprised that they were having such an up and down year, because I just expected the Kings to be top 2, top 3 in the West. You know what I'm saying? One of the best teams in the league. And that just has not, came to fruition at all. You know what I'm saying? So so to see Sac did take a big dip like they have this year, it's disappointing. And you have to blame, you have to put it on the players, but you also have to blame the coaching as well.
Absolutely. That's why I said I think Mike Brown is on the hot seat. I mean, they overachieved last year and did quite well. And they still ended up losing to the Warriors, though, in that series. But I think he did a hell of a job last year. This year, I don't know what's going on, but they look very lackadaisical. There's no sense of urgency on the floor. They're just not playing cohesively as a unit. You feel me? So I'm concerned with the Kings, but we'll see what happens, man, on Tuesday. I believe, just to do a recap out west, we both agree that the Lakers will beat the Pelicans.
Yes, I agree.
And then we believe that the Warriors will beat the Kings. And if that plays out, then the Pelicans would face the winner of the 9 and 10 matchup, which is the Warriors, and they would play. Assuming that happened.
Yes, assuming that happens, and that's different. That'd be a whole
other conversation.
That's a whole different conversation, because to me, the Pelicans are very, very athletic. And they're very young.
Yes.
And so if they were to play like a Golden State, or play even the Kings for that matter.
I like the Pelicans, to be honest.
Me too.
I'm flapping already.
Me too. Because again, we talk about the size advantage as well. If they play Golden State, they have a size advantage.
True.
And as great as Steph Curry is, as great as a player he is, he cannot continue to carry that team and put that team on his back for a long stretch, of time, long period of time. So, if that happens,
too much athleticism on the wing,
and too much youth. To be honest with you, it's a young man's game.
Exactly. Let's pivot out to the East. So we've got the 7-8 matchup, which is going to be interesting. We got the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. Shout out to Joel Embiid coming back from that injury.
Man, big time.
He's been looking pretty good. I think he's still working on getting his legs up under him and getting his stamina back, but he's looked pretty good in the games that I've seen him play.
Agreed.
If I'm not mistaken, the Sixers have won like 8 straight games going into the play-in tournament. So they got a game against Miami, and Eric Spoelstra, one of the greatest coaches of all time.
I agree.
Particularly in-game adjustments, like strategic matchups. I mean, after the run last year that Miami had, going to the finals now, going from the play-in tournament
to the final,
all the way, beating Boston.
He does not get enough credit.
Going through Milwaukee, going through the whole Eastern Conference.
He doesn't get enough.
I can't sleep on Miami, right? So from a coaching perspective, I got to give the advantage to Miami all day long. I'm sorry. I nothing against the Sixers, but I'm just saying now.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing is how high of a level can Embiid perform at in that game?
Yeah.
Will he get tired? Will he be worn down? But I think he's been back long enough now to develop a certain level of stamina. I think the Sixers are playing good basketball. Miami, the key to the game to me in terms of them getting the dub is they got to be able to shoot the ball from the outside, from the perimeter. Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, and which one's going to show up, because you got Jekyll and Hyde over there.
True, and that is funny you mentioned that. Right? That's what I was going to get to, Tyler Hero. I need you to step up, bro. You're supposed to be the next one up.
Yeah.
Outside of my guy Jimmy Butler. You know? They need Tyler Hero to come to the forefront and be that guy, especially if they're going to make a run. If they're going to make a run in this year's playoffs, they need Tyler Hero to be Tyler Hero. He has a ton of talent.
He does. And I need Tyler Hero to stop acting like a zero and be the hero that he's supposed to be.
I feel it.
Okay? You can't be coming in the game and scoring 0 points.
Right.
You're a shooter. That's why you on the team.
Right. That's what he does.
So you got to step your game up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does.
So, but I love Bam Adebayo.
Me too.
I love his game. I think he's very underrated. That's going to be an interesting matchup down in the post, right, with him and Embiid. I do give the advantage to Embiid, but I'm not going to sleep on Bam because he does get it done, and he's been very consistent this year. So I think that game's going to be tight, Rashad. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. Something is telling me that Miami's going to pull off an upset.
I agree.
And I'm not surprised. It's not an upset to me.
I'm about to
but
say,
they're going to be an underdog.
Right. Yeah, they are going to be an underdog, but it's not an upset to me.
Right.
To me either. And I think they will win, and because I'm going to give the respect that is due and the flowers that is due for the head coach, Spoelstra. He deserves his flowers, and he deserves his respect as one of the greatest coaches to ever do this thing. And and I think with that advantage, they will beat the Sixers.
Right. And I got to give some love to Nick Nurse, you know what I mean, who used to coach the Raptors. He's actually a good coach. I believe this is his first year in Philly, so he's done a good job considering all the injuries that they have had.
Right.
And let's not forget about Maxey now.
Yes.
I would be remiss. We got to talk about Maxey for a minute because he has been balling.
Mm-hmm.
So I love Maxey's game. I love what they're doing in Philadelphia. I think they're just a couple players away from really going to the next level and being in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. But I still think with the coaching experience, playoff Jimmy, Bam Adebayo, and hopefully these shooters from the outside, from the perimeter, if they make their shots, I think the Heat will advance.
I agree.
And with that being said, let's look at the 9 and 10 matchup coming out of the Eastern Conference. We've got the Atlanta Hawks going to Chi-Town to play the Bulls. I believe that game is in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting matchup, Rashad, because Trae Young has been out.
Yep.
He just got back, I think maybe about a week ago.
With
that hand injury.
He's looking to come to La La Land after this year.
I wouldn't be mad at him if he does.
Just saying.
I wouldn't be mad.
He's looking to come to La La Land after this year.
Okay. Well, I like his game. The question is, because he's coming off of that injury, how will it impact his game? Because, when you miss that much time, and he's a great shooter, right? I still think it affects you, not only from a stamina aspect, but just overall, your performance on the floor. But I think Atlanta's got a team that's, kind of in the middle of the pack.
I agree.
They're not like a team that stands out to the top, and they're not in the basement, right? They're kind of just in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a future if they can keep Trae Young. They've got a future, but I don't think that's going to happen. We're going to see how that plays out. But shout out to the Bulls. I mean, they kind of started off struggling this year, and they kind of came on second half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
DeMar DeRozan.
Compton's finest.
CPT, baby. Woo! That boy has been balling. What are your thoughts on Chicago and DeRozan? Because I honestly believe that the Bulls are going to win this game.
Yeah, I agree too.
I think they're going to win, and I think DeMar is going to take them to the promised land and get them over the hump against the Hawks.
Right, and I agree. I think DeMar is going to do that same thing as well.
Yeah,
because DeMar, I don't know, DeMar kind of went. He's kind of changed his game and kind of looked like the old DeMar DeRozan, which is crazy.
Yeah,
he's getting up there as well. And to see DeMar DeRozan playing at a very high level right now, it's refreshing because he's one of the best to do it, and he's a future Hall of Famer when he retires as well.
Absolutely.
So I I love seeing DeMar continue that trend and turn back the heads of time, like your boy LBJ is doing, obviously.
Yeah.
One of the GOATs as well. So, I think the Bulls do win this game. My thing with Trae Young is Trae Young and the Hawks management has been at odds for like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And that injury, not saying he wasn't injured, but that injury is the list. It adds to a list of things that he's done with Atlanta. He's just over Atlanta.
Right.
And I just believe that going into this game, I don't see. I think he will compete because he's a competitor, right?
Absolutely.
He will compete at a high level, right? But I don't think you're gonna get the full extent of Trae Young like you would in years past, because Trae Young is looking at next offseason. That's just how I feel about it.
And I totally respect your position, but with that being said, who do you think is going to come out and get the dub in this game? Do you think the Bulls are going to take it?
No doubt.
Because I believe Chicago's going to win.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Okay. Well, we both agree there.
Yes.
And assuming that's the case, then the Bulls would play. Obviously they would play
Miami.
The Sixers.
No, yeah, the Sixers. Yeah,
they would play the Sixers.
Yeah,
which would be an interesting game.
Man.
But we're gonna see how it plays out. But we both are in agreement out in the East, where we believe Miami is gonna pull off the win
in Chicago
against the Sixers, and the Bulls are gonna win at home against the Hawks.
Yeah.
So shout out to Chicago, Atlanta. All the teams who just fought to get in that position. The Sixers and the Heat. I love this time of year. Shout out to Adam Silver, by the way, who implemented the play-in, because I was skeptical, right?
Yeah.
At first, I was like, well, what are y'all doing
about that, Mac? Like, how you feel about the play-in?
I love it.
I do too.
It adds an extra layer of excitement, and it's a level of unpredictability, because any team could just slide in there and get hot, kind of like the NCAA tournament, right? So I love what Adam Silver has done with that. Shout out to Adam Silver and the NBA for making that change. I love what they're doing. So we're going to see how it plays out, and it'll be interesting to see how, that turns out. But shout out to the postseason, all the teams that have been playing hard to get in this position, right? Speaking of that, one of the matchups in the first round that interests me is the Dallas Mavericks and the LA Clippers.
Yeah, you've been calling this for a little bit.
I've been telling you now, even when the camera's off, I've been telling you how I feel. So going into that series, the Clippers are favored to win the series. Dallas is coming in at plus 115 on the betting line. I believe that the Mavericks are definitely poised and constructed to beat the Clippers, provided Luka Doncic plays his game, which he always does, right? Never disappoints. And Kyrie Irving, if he can get to the rim and Kyrie can make plays, not only, shooting the ball, but distributing.
Right.
I just believe that Dallas has enough youth and athleticism on the wing. I think they've got a lot of good a collection of role players that will contribute. And I believe that the Mavericks have the ability to knock the Clippers out. And the Clippers, man, shout out to Steve Ballmer, by the way. I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. You're one of the greatest owners in professional sports. Building that new arena out there in Inglewood. Shout out to that in the Clipper organization doing what they do. It's crazy, man, because ever since they acquired Paul George and they got Kawhi on the team, right?
I know where
they've been missing. I mean, I'm in the store like buying milk. I'm like, do I see one of these brothers on the milk carton? What's happening, man? They've been missing in action, man. So, they finally are together and they're going to be playing together, man. And I still think they got talent, but there's just always some kind of a missing link with that team. They just at times seem very, very lethargic, lackadaisical, disoriented on the floor. There's been a pattern with the Clippers, particularly when they play at home.
It's in the playoffs, period.
But this year I've noticed, particularly when they play at home on a Sunday, I don't know if them brothers been partying the night before or what's been going on, but they just don't seem to show up. And they seem very vulnerable. I mean, the Cavs recently had like a 26-point lead on the road. They were playing, at the Clippers' home court, and the Clippers came back and won the game, but they were down almost 30 points. Right. And the Pacers came and blew them out. And all these teams have been coming in and dominating at home. I've been concerned, so hopefully they can step up their game. I honestly believe in a 7-game series because of the talent, because of the coaching of Jason Kidd, with Kyrie Irving and Luka. I think they're playing with house money. And I think that Dallas will win that series. I think it goes 6 games. I think Dallas wins the series 4-2. Give me your thoughts on that matchup, and what do you think?
And you know what? It's fun. I know we agreeing a lot on this show so far.
It's okay to disagree.
I know, right? But I actually believe you, though. I actually agree with you on this one as well because of the pedigree of Jason Kidd, Kyrie, and Luka together, man. And honestly, shout out to Kyrie because he's turned a lot of heads this year, man. When he first got to Dallas last year, a lot of people were hating on that move. They didn't think it would work at all.
True.
Kyrie got a lot of pushback, obviously, from off the court stuff and then on the court stuff. But to see him actually play in unison with Luka, it's refreshing as well. So I got Dallas winning this one.
Okay. I'm not mad at that. I mean, I just think overall, from a talent perspective, and from a coaching matchup, Jason Kidd is a really good coach.
He is.
I think he's very underrated.
I agree.
But shout out to the Mavs. I mean, because they had a down year last year.
Yes, they did.
And what people need to understand, when these high caliber players come to a new organization, they got to not only get acclimated in a new city, they got to get that chemistry. They got to gel on the court. And they only played, I believe, 30 plus games together last year.
That's not enough.
Wasn't enough time.
Not in basketball.
But now they complement each other on the floor. I love what Luka is doing. Kyrie is always doing Kyrie-like things. And I just believe personally that Dallas is going to come out of that first round. And as always, it's going to be a disappointment with the Clippers. I'm sorry to say. Sorry, Clipper Nation, but that dark cloud ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
And with Luka, because when you play with a Kyrie, you have to fit your game to his game as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he's so ball dominant also. And he's such a great talent, one of the greatest talents we've ever seen at that position, at the point guard position.
Yeah.
So shout out to Luka for being able to kind of retune his game and refine his game to benefit with Kyrie, honestly, and it's paying dividends this year. And that's why you see the Mavs as a sleeper contender right now heading into the playoffs. They can make some serious noise, and first being they can beat the Clippers, and I got them beating the Clippers and winning that series.
Yeah, so we agree so far so good. We're going to see what happens though. Let's talk about, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who locked up the number 1 seed, one of the youngest teams in the NBA. Shout out to the OKC Thunder doing big things. I got to start with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That man is a beast. He's not my number 1 pick for MVP, but he's second. I still think the Joker's gonna win it, but
again,
hey, you gotta look at you gotta look at the numbers. You gotta look at the numbers.
Man,
gotta look at the numbers.
I don't know about that.
That's okay. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been balling. He's the leader of that team. He's been consistent. He is just balling out of control, and I love the youth and the athleticism that the Thunder are definitely displaying. I mean, I like Josh Giddey's game. Holmgren's got some game.
I like Giddey.
They got a lot of talented role players on the floor, and it's scary, man, because they have literally I believe they have like 8 to 10 first-round picks left, the draft, in the next 3 to 5 years because of all that Paul George situation, that trade.
The Russell
Westbrook and all that.
I think, are they still benefiting from the Harden trade years ago?
I don't know. That's a good question.
With all those picks, they have to be, right?
Yeah, right. But they just have put a nice nucleus on the floor, and to lock up the number 1 seed, being one of the youngest teams, particularly in a very dominant, heavily influenced Western Conference. I mean, the West has just been loaded all year. And it's been like that for a few years. So for the Thunder to do what they're doing, I got to give them love, especially in a small market like Oklahoma City. It's going to be interesting to see whoever the A seed is, assuming that the Lakers beat the Pelicans, the Lakers would be playing the Thunder. You know that, right?
Right.
What's so funny?
And I'm laughing because we're playing kids. We're going to be playing kids that's balling.
balling.
And they don't know what they don't know.
There's no pressure.
It's no pressure. All the pressure on us.
They never been there.
Exactly. That's scary.
Actually, the Lakers are going to be playing the Pelicans.
Oh, okay,
or the Nuggets.
Okay.
All right, good looking, Solomon.
Yeah,
so,
good looking then.
yeah,
All right.
But even with that being said, the Thunder, whoever they play, it's gonna be a matchup nightmare for whoever they play.
They don't know what they don't know.
And they're just out there balling, and I like their energy. I like their enthusiasm. And, they're a young team. They got a bright future. And, I thought for sure Denver was going to lock up the number 1 seed, but they had a hiccup in San Antonio a few days ago. But they all finished, with the same record. Minnesota, Denver, and OKC, they all had the same record at the end of the year, but the tiebreakers went to the Thunder.
Yep. And like I said, OKC they're young, they're up and coming.
Yeah.
They're playing with house money going into the playoffs this year. Even though they are the number 1 seed, that's great, but they're still playing with house money because they're not proven yet.
Yeah.
And when you get a team like that, that's hungry like that, they're young, explosive, super athletic. Hey man, they're gonna cause some major problems.
Yeah, and shout out to Sam Presti, the front office, who's done a phenomenal job, in the draft and building team and building character within that organization. So, Oklahoma City, I'm not mad at y'all. Y'all keep balling. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I need you on the show. I need you to come hop on Sports Hop. We got to make that happen. But they got a bright future ahead, man, and I'm definitely excited to see where they go. My biggest question mark in the East, Rashad, is the Boston Celtics. Are they going to have that playoff hangover that they had last year where they gave away that Game 7 and got blown out at home against Miami, when they came back and won Game 6 at the buzzer, by the way. I thought that was an amazing finish. What do you think about the Celtics and their mindset? Do you think that they're poised and ready to get out of the East? I mean, before you can make an NBA Finals run, you got to get through the Eastern Conference.
Right.
You still got Philadelphia. You still got potentially Miami. I mean, you've got some teams in there. Milwaukee, if they can get healthy. Giannis is out right now. What are your thoughts? You think Boston can come around?
Boston is ready.
Yeah.
Boston's my pick to win the whole thing. I got them winning the finals.
I got the Nuggets winning.
And I know you do. And I respect that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But Boston, I think they're ready. They're prime this year. They had the best record in basketball this year for a reason.
Right.
And I think they are primed to make a hell of a run and host, that Larry O'Brien trophy.
Well, I love Jaylen Brown's game. I love Jason Tatum's game. They just have to have a level of consistency. It can't be every other game you balling.
Right.
And then you taking a game off.
Right. It's the
playoffs,
playoffs,
to
though.
do that.
It's different. It's
a whole nother level.
Right.
It's a whole different animal.
Right.
From a coaching perspective, I think there's a level of vulnerability with the Celtics.
Okay.
I mean, I still believe they should have kept the coach that's in Houston right now, but that's just my opinion. But we're going to see how it plays out, man. And it's going to be interesting. But the Celtics definitely have, from a roster perspective, and don't forget they got Porzingis now. Okay,
they are so deep, bro.
They're loaded. Yeah, they're loaded.
So deep.
So we're going to see how it plays out. And it'll be interesting, man. We're going to move on, and we're going to now tap in with the NFL. We love some NFL, man. I know you've been waiting, man. So let's start with the draft, the mock draft, something that I kind of put together, and I have some circles of people around the league that kind of have done some similar things. But at number 1, the Bears have the number 1 pick, right?
They do.
Caleb Williams out of USC. Everyone is expecting him to go number 1 with the Bears. I believe Caleb Williams has a bright future, but he did show a level of vulnerability, particularly in some big games. That Notre Dame game, turnover prone.
Okay.
Made a lot of mistakes.
So tell me how you feel about Caleb, and I'm gonna tell you how I feel about this whole situation.
Hey, you already know I'm gonna keep it 100, right? I think Caleb Williams is a good player.
Right.
Do I think he should be the number 1 pick? Hell no.
Okay, so you don't.
No.
So you don't agree with the masses that he's this generational talent?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No, I do not.
Okay.
And I believe you agree with me.
Oh,
but
yes,
we
I
gonna
do.
see, right?
Yes, I do.
So
But all right.
you know, I think the young man has got skills. I think he can play. I think he can play at a high level, but is he a generational talent to lead you to the promised land? Is he like another Patrick Mahomes? Absolutely not. Not even close. I don't even think he's on the level of a Josh Allen, and I'm keeping it real, okay? So it remains to be seen, but Chicago, you know, they let Justin Fields walk for virtually nothing, which I would have kept him, by the way, if I would have been the Bears. But nonetheless, he's anticipated to get drafted #1 pick. I personally, if I was Chicago, I'd be looking at like a Jaden Daniels or somebody like that of that caliber, or even some other quarterbacks that I think are a little bit better, like a Drake May. I even think is very highly skilled, but he's going to go #1 according to what I'm predicting and some mock drafts and some circles around the league of people that I talk to. I don't think that's the right pick, but I certainly am not hating on him. I wish the brother nothing but the best. I still think Caleb can ball. I think he can play. But all the hype.
Right.
Talk to me about it. What are your thoughts?
I don't see it either, bro. I agree with you, Mac. I agree with you. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. What I tell Bears fans, and you know, you and I know I'm a diehard Packer fan, but just I'm a football fan first. And coming from a football standpoint, the Bears are. That's where quarterbacks' careers go to die.
Yep.
Unfortunately. And not only that, they are the worst franchise in NFL history at drafting and developing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That is a fact. So granted, they did great things this offseason, acquiring Swift at running back. They acquired
Keenan
Allen, great receivers. That, you know, so they're putting pieces around the offense for whoever they take, which is Caleb Williams, which will be Caleb Williams. In that situation, that's great and all. Their offensive line is still Porsche at best.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, and I don't trust the organization. I don't trust them as a front office. I don't trust the coaching staff. It's the Bears.
Right.
You know, so as good as Caleb has been, and he was at USC, I'm a diehard USC guy as well.
Yeah.
And I watched his game at these last couple years when he won the Heisman and this past year. My biggest knock about Caleb is when the first read is gone, he drops his eyes and he's running around trying to create. That's not football.
And he's careless with the
And
football.
he's careless with the ball. When you play, when you in the NFL, the quarterbacks that succeed the most, they play within structure.
Yep.
It's only a few times you can play with out of structure. You know, it's going to be times where you have to make a play, you know, with your legs. But they play within structure, Mac. And this kid does not play within structure. He picked up some bad habits from Lincoln Riley this last year. And I think it's going to translate into the NFL. And I just do not believe in the offensive system and the coaching staff of the Bears to develop that and to take that out of his game.
Excellent point, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, part of the foundation and the development of a young athlete is predicated on the organizational structure and management and team and, you know, the dysfunctionality associated with the Bears. I mean, you're right, man. That's been going on for decades. And it's just been, you know, a grease fire.
Man.
Literally. And, you know, ain't nobody got a hose over there in Chicago to put it out. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think if he was drafted by a different team, I think it would impact his career heavily.
Big time.
In a more positive light.
Yes.
But because he's going to go to Chicago, I think he's taken 2 steps back.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against him as a player.
At all.
But that's against the organization, right?
And I totally agree, Mac. And the thing is with the Bears, my thing is their best quarterback was McMahon. And we're talking 85, 86.
40 years ago?
Man, what? That's your best quarterback. So as talented as Caleb is, right? As talented as he is, I always say this when we're talking about the draft, it's the ultimate crapshoot, number one. And number two, it doesn't matter when you go, it matters where you go.
Absolutely.
And where you go determines if you're going to be successful or you're not, or you're going to be middle of the pack, or you're going to be out of the league within the next 2-3 years. So, because we already know the NFL is not for long. So,
absolutely,
that's just how I feel about the whole situation when it comes to the Bears drafting and just the entire NFL draft complex as a whole.
Right. And we're gonna go ahead and move on to the second pick in my mock draft, and I believe that the Washington Commanders are gonna select Jaden Daniels from LSU, and I really like Daniels' game. He throws a nice football. He can improvise with his legs. I think he has a level of confidence and a level of maturity where I think he can make some things happen. Am I excited from an organizational standpoint where he's going? No.
Right.
And I think that, that's NFL purgatory, to be honest with you. Between Chicago and Washington, not a lot of excitement, and no disrespect to those franchises, but let's look at the history.
Yes.
With Daniel Snyder and the team, and the team recently got sold, and, they couldn't get it right, even with Robert Griffin III. The way they mismanaged his injury and his career was short-lived. I just think that, from a developmental standpoint, Washington is similar to Chicago, the front office, the management, the organization. Now, hopefully there'll be a change now that the team has been sold.
Right.
And maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So maybe I could be speaking a little bit too soon. But from the past, let's look at the past and see all the failures and the disappointments, right, associated with the Commanders, right, formerly the Redskins.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I still think he's a generational talent. I think Jaden Daniels can ball. I'm not excited where he's going. I'm excited for him, but I'm not excited where he's going. If that makes sense.
But let's be real, Mac. If you're picking in the top 5, you're usually going to a bad organization.
True, but there's a difference between a bad organization and a bad team.
True.
Two separate components, right?
You're right. I agree with you on that.
And so from that perspective, I just don't feel Washington is the perfect fit for him. I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect fit, but I think that teams can gel over time from an organizational capacity and a player capacity where you can meet common ground and make it work. Now, I could be speaking way too soon. I hope I'm wrong.
Right.
I want to see Washington turn it around.
Right.
And for the life of me, I don't understand why when they brought Eric Bieniemy in, that they didn't just make him a head coach. And now he's over back on the West Coast at UCLA, right?
Yes.
I just didn't understand that move, but that's a whole different story. But my point is, I just feel like the Commanders have just not been organized from an organizational and a management.
I agree.
And just a whole front office standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that it's just been chaotic.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. And it's funny because they let Bieniemy walk, and then you hire Cliff Kingsbury, who's done absolutely nothing.
Right. Right. Especially when he was in Arizona.
Right.
I don't understand how we got a coaching job.
He's done absolutely nothing. So, he's the offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, I really hope he thrives, but you're right. I mean, he's not going to the best of situations. We know that. He's not going to the best of situations when it comes from an organization standpoint, but I really hope this kid can turn that organization around and be the face of Washington, because they need, that organization, that city, they need something to cheer about. Especially, because it's a football city. It's a football town, you know what I'm saying? So they need the Washington Commanders to be good.
Yeah, and they're a very passionate fan base,
Very.
The nation's capital. And I feel bad for the fans. The fans want to see a winner. They want to see some positive productivity on the field. They want to see some wins. They want to see, Washington get back to that playoff dominance that they had, we're talking 30 plus years ago, right? So we'll see how it plays out. I hope I'm wrong in that perspective. The fan base is really passionate, and they've been hurting for a long time, Rashad, you know, and they deserve to see, more productivity and a better performance on the field. So we're going to see what happens, but shout out to the Commanders. You do have the number 2 pick. I would go for Jaden Daniels if I was Washington, so I'm not mad at their selection.
Me too.
But, at the end of the day, we're going to see how it plays out. They're in the NFC East. with the Eagles, which is,
And the Cowboys.
And the Cowboys are always going to show up during the regular season.
You had to throw that
regular
in there.
season.
You had to throw that in there for Cowboy fans.
We're not going to bag on you Cowboy
Here
fanatics
you go.
today. We're going to chill. Moving on. The third pick in the mock draft, I believe, that's going to be Drake May. He is projected to possibly go to New England with the Patriots, and new regime now. Gerard Mayo, former Patriot, is the coach. No more Belichick. This is going to be interesting to see what happens up there in New England. First black coach, by the way, to ever coach in New England.
Yeah.
So shout out to that. Long overdue, but shout out to that. I'm very curious to see what direction New England will go in. I believe that they're going to struggle mightily. First year coach, new quarterback. They got rid of Mac Jones. They lost a lot of key pieces. Their defense is still, somewhat
solid.
decent.
Mm-hmm.
But, from an offensive perspective, Rashad, they don't have any receivers that can stretch the field. I don't believe Elliott's going to be with them this year in the backfield. And if he is, he's getting older and up there in age. So I do think the Patriots are rebuilding. Drake May can play. I did watch him at Carolina, and he can play. I like how he throws the football. I like how he's poised in the pocket. So what are your thoughts on this, man, in terms of them acquiring Drake May potentially with that third pick?
I like May. He has some mechanical issues that I think he needs to sit a little bit.
Okay.
And work on. But I do like the arm talent. He's legit.
Yeah.
But going to New England, it's a new regime. They haven't been the best of regimes as far as drafting and developing quarterbacks and receivers.
Yes.
They usually acquire receivers in free agency to go along with like low tier receivers they'll get in the 6th, 7th round, like a Hogan they had at one point, Edelman, these little slot guys. So
Welker.
Yeah, Welker. They can find those slot guys, but they're horrible at drafting and developing wideouts.
Right.
And I just hope now with Mayo being there, they can change that. They can finally turn that tide around and hopefully start drafting some legit weapons with whoever they take. And obviously it's probably going to be May or one of the other quarterbacks at that spot. So, that's how I feel about the Patriots.
Right. Because I do believe, in the AFC East, you've got the Jets. If Rodgers can stay healthy, they got a ton of talent in New York.
They do.
Despite the fact, Rodgers is very, very old.
Yes,
and
but that
aging.
offensive line is still old too.
Yeah. Buffalo, a lot of question marks up there with the Bills. Stephon Diggs is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the head coach is on the hot seat. I think McDermott is on the hot seat this year.
I agree.
Miami, with Tua, they're kind of just up and down. I can't trust the Dolphins, particularly when they got to play in cold weather.
Fact.
So a lot of unanswered questions. We're going to have some answers here in the next 6 months. But shout out to the Patriots, to Gerard Mayo. I wish y'all the best. We'll see how that plays out,
Yep.
no matter who they pick in that with the third pick. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, right? Let's move on to the desert. Arizona Cardinals with the 4th pick. I'm really excited. I believe, I think they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Shout out to Marvin Harrison Sr. I used to watch that man ball out with the Colts.
Hey.
But Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State, great receiver, can catch the football, runs those precise routes. His whole coordination on the sidelines with his feet, he can just really do the toe tap and really make it happen. So he's a big time receiver. And my biggest thing is, can Kyler Murray stay on the field to get the football to him? That's going to be the biggest thing this year for Arizona, because obviously they haven't had the last few seasons. They've been disappointing. Their record, they were kind of towards the bottom of the NFC West. But Kyler Murray can play when he's healthy. He can play, but I still think he's too small. And I'm not hating on him.
Right.
The brother can move around.
Right.
He can dance. He can make plays happen. He can improvise with his legs, but he just can't see over the line when it comes to the deep ball. He throws a great deep ball now, but I think the lack of height hurts him a lot more than what people know.
That and decision making, in my opinion.
And I think he needs to bring a level of maturity to the table. I still think he needs to grow up a little bit.
I agree.
You know, and me hearing him, and I don't know if it's true, but this is what I heard. He'd rather be playing video games than studying the playbook. I'm like, bruh, you making a lot of money out there. You can put that video game console down for a minute and focus on winning football games and learning the offense. But he is a talented quarterback, a little bit undersized in my book. But I am excited about Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he can play. I think he'll be a nice complementary weapon to the Cardinals offense. But in that NFC West with the Rams still on the rise, you got San Francisco and Seattle is still, you know, a threat. I still think they're going to be in the basement. I don't think it's going to make enough noise for them. But I think they have a future with Harrison Jr. What are your thoughts?
I agree. And it's funny you mentioned we're talking about Kyler and this organization. That's who I compare Caleb to. Caleb's a bigger Kyler Murray.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Interesting analogy.
That's who he reminds me of. He's just a bigger Kyler.
Yeah.
And with the Cardinals, I just feel like getting Harrison, obviously he's a generational talent, I believe. That's the guy that is a generational talent.
Yeah.
He's the best receiver I've seen in a long, long time.
And you got to get him if he's available.
Yes, exactly. So you cannot pass up on that opportunity of drafting him. But depending on who comes calling for quarterbacks in the top 5, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Because the Cardinals could trade out that pick and get down to like 5 or 6 and be right there to pick again. So, and you know, because, you know, these quarterbacks they're going off the board regardless early.
Right.
You know, this is a quarterback driven league. So, but yeah, Harrison is a generational talent. So I see him definitely going to the Cardinals, and it'll be a great fit. Hopefully, like you said, Kyler can stay healthy. I'm surprised they kept him. I thought for sure last year was going to be his last year in Arizona.
Yeah.
I thought for sure they were going to trade him off, but they end up keeping him, and he is the franchise guy moving forward. So, yeah, you got to give him a weapon for sure.
Right. Well, we'll see how it plays out in the desert. Shout out to the Cardinals. I think Kyler still has room to grow.
I agree.
And Harrison Jr. is a great pickup, so they have to get him. I would do the same thing. We're going to move to number 5. We got the Los Angeles Chargers drafting at number 5 with Jim Harbaugh. New regime in L.A., right? I love the pickup. I love the hire. It's a sexy hire. I mean, he's a very good football coach.
He is.
And he has NFL coaching experience. He did some big things in the Bay Area when he was the 49ers coach years ago.
Yes,
so I love the new acquisition of Harbaugh as the head coach. Malik Neighbors is who I'm projecting that the Chargers are going to go with, the wide receiver out of LSU. I like Neighbors' game. You know, he runs good routes. He can stretch the field. He's got some speed. You know, when you lose Keenan Allen and a couple of other big play receivers for that Chargers offense, you got to find somebody to replace. I think that Neighbors is a good pickup for the Chargers at number 5 because I think Justin Herbert, who is a generational talent as a quarterback, and hopefully he can avoid the injury bug because he did miss the last 5 weeks of the year with that broken finger. So hopefully from an offensive line standpoint, if they don't go with Neighbors, they're going to go with the offensive tackle, you know, coming out of college. But I believe that the Chargers have to focus on protecting Herbert, not only getting him some receivers to throw the ball to, they got to protect that guy. So what are your thoughts on that number 5 pick?
And that's why I think this pick might be either a trade or they might not draft Neighbors.
Right.
I believe they could probably take Joe Alt, who's, to me, that's the second player in this draft that's a generational talent.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he reminds me of Zach Thomas.
And I would go with Alt. If I was the Chargers, I would go with him over Neighbors.
You it's almost like you put him at left tackle, you set it, you forget it. He's there for the next 10 years. He's all pro.
Yeah.
You know, he's a future Hall of Famer. That's just how I feel about Joe Alt. And I think they're going to go that route instead of going Neighbors. You can get this draft class is deep at wideout. You can get receivers in the second, third round.
Yeah, you can.
You got to protect your franchise, and that franchise being Justin Herbert, who needs to put up or shut up this year as well got to get your team to the playoffs, bro. You got to put up or shut up. They're paying you $40+ million. You got to get it done now. I know you got a new coach, new regime. I get it, but I think they're going to protect him first and set him up for success going into this year.
I agree with you, and that's an excellent point. And in defense of Herbert, though, when they had that 24-0 lead against Jacksonville a couple years ago, the defense let the Chargers down. I mean, Herbert doesn't play on both sides of the football, but he definitely has more room to grow. I still believe he's a generational talent. He's a great guy. I've worked with him. We both worked with him on the spot.
Yes, sir. Yes, we did.
Shout out to SoFi Bank, by the way. Y'all know what time it is.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they do need to surround him with more weapons.
I agree.
He needs receivers to stretch the field. He needs to have a deep threat going down the field. But none of that matters if the man can't be protected.
Exactly.
And he's running for his life. And so from an offensive line standpoint, I do agree with you. I think Alt is the better alternative. No pun intended, of course. Alt is the better alternative, right? Because even if you don't get Neighbors, you're going to find some talent in the later rounds. You're absolutely correct. I mean, look at Puka Nacua for the Rams. I mean, that's a prime example.
Yes.
So there's some diamonds in the rough. So we'll see what happens, but I am excited to see a new regime in L.A. under Harbaugh's leadership. But when you're in the AFC West, there's really two teams, that are a threat, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs and the L.A. Chargers. I think the Raiders are on the come up. I still believe they're a couple years away.
They got to get a quarterback.
They got to get a quarterback, and Denver, I think, is going to be in the basement. But, I'm upset with y'all. That's a whole nother story. We're not going to go into that today. But I do believe that, when you got Patrick Mahomes in the AFC West with Andy Reid and Kelsey, it's going to be a challenge anytime you go up against them. But the Chargers historically have matched up well. When they've played the Chiefs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even in losses.
Right.
They've matched up well with the Chiefs. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, man, and we'll see what happens. Speaking of things playing out, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Under the helm, Kevin O'Connell, former quarterback who's the head coach. I'm hearing a lot of stuff around the league, Rashad, that they're going to try to move up and possibly go as high as number 8, maybe even higher to get J.J. McCarthy. I think McCarthy, with Kevin O'Connell's experience, he's an offensive-minded coach. I think he'd be a great fit in Minnesota. You still got Jefferson. You still got some pieces offensively. I do believe that Minnesota still is a couple of players away from really making a lot of noise. But I think that's a great landing spot for J.J. McCarthy, particularly coming out of Michigan. He wasn't required under Harbaugh's offensive schemes. He wasn't really required to throw the football a lot. It was a more run-heavy offense.
Exactly.
With Corum, by the way, who's a beast.
That's my guy.
We talked about him.
Oh, that's my hey. That's look. Side note: I have a draft crush every single year.
Yeah.
Right. My draft crush this year is Blake Corum.
Okay.
I want him in Green Bay so bad, but it won't happen. But I'm just saying.
Right. I feel you. I'm not mad at it. So I think that's a great landing spot for J.J. McCarthy. He played his football up in that region of the country. Michigan right next door to Minnesota. So I think that'd be a good landing spot for him. I still believe that the Vikings are a few players away and a couple years away from really becoming a big threat in the NFC North with the rise of the Lions and Green Bay, by the way, who I know is your team. So we're going to see what happens. But what are your thoughts on Minnesota, moving up via trade and getting in a better position to get McCarthy?
They're ready to have their franchise quarterback homegrown. That's what the message that's what the message that I'm getting from Minnesota. That's the message they've sent. They're tired of these kind of quick fixes, in a sense, with Kirk Cousins, the Dante Culpeppers they had, the Cunninghams they had. They want their guy to be homegrown. They want to draft him and develop him. And they're eager, especially in that division with Green Bay, with Detroit, and obviously the Bears. They're making their moves and stuff like that this offseason. So everybody wants their franchise guy. And I think McCarthy, to me, is crazy picking McCarthy over Penix. Because Penix is in my opinion, head above shoulders better than McCarthy.
Right.
But I mean, if you want McCarthy to be the safe pick, I get it, but I don't think it moves the needle. That's just how I feel about it.
Right. And speaking of Penix, we're going to pivot to the Vegas Raiders who have the number 13 pick, and they have taken a look at Michael Penix Jr. and I honestly believe, he's a lefty. He throws the best deep ball out of any quarterback in the draft. He's got a pretty deep ball. He can move around. He can make plays with his legs. I think he's good at reads, particularly at the line of scrimmage. I think he has a level of maturity much better than some of the other quarterbacks that are going earlier than him. Keep in mind that he's faced and endured multiple knee injuries.
Right.
He's had some injuries. He injured, I believe, his ribs in that playoff championship game last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But Michael Penix Jr. is a baller. And I think that's the sleep of the draft. I think that he is that diamond in the rough. Whoever gets him, and you give him, whether you give him time to develop or you just kind of throw him in the fire.
I think he's ready.
I think he's ready. Now, if they sit him down for a year or two, whoever ends up picking him up, I'm not mad by that decision. But I think Michael Penix Jr. has a bright future in the National Football League. He can throw the football. He can throw short passes. He can stretch the field and throw the deep ball. He can move around. I like his reads at the line of scrimmage, like I said. And I think that he's only going to get better. But I just hope that he goes to the right team. Because system and organization matter.
Man, we always say it's not when you go, it's where you go.
Right. So, timing is everything.
Timing is everything. So I totally agree with everything you said about Penix, because that's how I feel about him as well. And it just honestly, it speaks volumes of the kind of quarterback he is and the kind of character he is as a person, that we both think so highly of this kid that he is the diamond in the rough of the draft, and he's in my opinion probably going to be the best quarterback out of this draft. Right.
And it'll be interesting, shout out to the Raiders and shout out to Antonio Pierce, Compton's finest CPT, born and bred and turning that franchise around. The last 8 games of the year, the Raiders had the number 1 defense in the league.
Yes, they did.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yes, they did.
So he turned that defense around, and they won, I believe, under his leadership. They won out of the last 8 games, I think they went 5-3.
Mm-hmm.
They came up a little short, but the Raiders are definitely on the come up. I think they're a few players away and a few years away from really making a lot of noise, but I think they're still going to be hovering around the 9 to 10 game wins next year.
I agree.
Particularly if the defense continues to play the way they did.
I agree. Between 7 and 10, I can see that. I could definitely see that.
Right. And shout out to Raider Nation. Y'all are crazy, but y'all are the most passionate fan base I've seen in my life. So shout out to the Raiders. Shout out to Raider Nation. We're going to go up to Green Bay, Wisconsin. I see you rocking the hat, always repping. Cheesehead Nation up there. Hopefully that cheese won't be melting anytime soon, right? Because y'all really let it melt on the stove that fourth quarter against the 49ers.
Man.
I mean, you had the game won. You outplayed San Francisco. So, but Jordan Love definitely showed a lot of character. Definitely, he evolved much faster than I thought he would.
Right.
Playing his first year full-time as a starter. You had Jones in the backfield, who had an outstanding game when they played against the Niners in that I believe it was the divisional round.
Right.
When they lost and came up short. But nonetheless, Coach LaFleur has done a good job. I think the organization has done a good job. I think Green Bay is set and poised to make another deep run. The NFC North, to me, is going to come down between them and the Lions.
I agree.
Ain't no other topic of conversation with the Bears and the Vikings. No disrespect.
Right.
But it's going to be basically between the Lions and the Packers to see who wins that division. What are your thoughts about Green Bay in terms of what they did last year? Because they surprised a lot of people.
Of course.
And where they're headed into the future.
I mean, it's funny because before the season, everybody, they were talking, who does Love have to throw to? Who is Jordan Love, right?
Right.
Because I mean, we're coming off the Rodgers era. You trade Rodgers away. Oh well, the Packers would be a doormat. They'll finish 4th in the NFC division, won't make the playoffs. Yada 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 yada. We started off hot, right? 2 2-1. Then we went on a 5-game, 6-game slid, right?
Struggled.
And then everybody, oh, Love is this. I heard crazy things. Start Clifford, the backup, tank for Caleb, all kind of crazy buffoonery. And it's funny because I've been a Love guy since the day we drafted the kid.
Yeah.
And just in my opinion, the kid had elite arm talent coming out of college. He had a horrible situation at Utah State.
Yeah.
And he was raw. He needed to develop. And Brian Gutekunst, shout out to Goody Mane. That's why I call him. Yeah, Gucci Mane. No, I call him Goody Mane.
Okay.
I call him Goody Mane. Shout out to Goody Mane. He saw what I saw, and I'm sure a few other people saw that this kid has it. He just needs to develop. He needs to sit.
He needed a chance to play.
And facts. And to me, it's a perfect situation that you sit behind a future first ballot Hall of Famer and one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game in Aaron Rodgers. And he did that. He developed. And his first year, obviously last year, he was started off hot, had a slid, and the last 8-9 games was some of the best quarterback play in the NFL last year, hands down. He went 21-1. You know what I'm saying? He had that was his touchdown to interception ratio.
Right.
It was crazy. He ended up beating Mahomes in December in Green Bay. You ended up beating the Lions on Thanksgiving, embarrassing the Lions actually. And the Lions were a 9-point favorite that game.
Blowing out the Cowboys
and
in the
then
playoffs.
Blow out the number 2 seed, the Cowboys. You go into Dallas and just blow the doors off of them. I said, hey, he gave them a Joe Jackson ass whooping. okay. That's what he did.
Right. It was that bad.
Right, it was that bad. And then you get to Frisco and you're on the brink of going to the NFC Championship because you pretty much controlled that entire game until the last 3 minutes of that game, unfortunately. And
they collapsed.
Right, and they collapsed. But you give him a pass because he did something Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers couldn't do in their first year. That's get them to the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. And win a playoff game.
Win a playoff game, and again, be on the brink of going to the NFC Championship game. So for me, you pay him, you lock him up for the next 3 to 4 years.
Right.
And you start building around him. And shout out to the kids that were around him, like the Reeds, like the Wickses, the Watsons, the Dobbs. These kids grew up before our eyes, and it's we're headed in the right direction for next year. I'm excited.
Right. The only thing I didn't like is they let Jones walk.
I hear you.
And I was a big Jones fan. I mean, he was balling, especially in that divisional playoff game against the Niners. That man was balling. And I don't understand why they abandoned the run late in the game. You know what I mean? Because he was running all over that Niners defense.
Right.
And I just think they should have focused more on the ground game. But nonetheless, they did pick up Josh Jacobs, but to me, Jacobs is a definitely younger back. He's a durable back, but he has a history of injuries as well.
I agree.
So he gets hurt a lot. So we're going to see from the backfield how that's going to work out for the Packers.
Right.
If it was me, I would have re-signed Jones. If it would have been me.
And I hear you, but and we here's the thing. Jones is about to turn 30. We already know 30 years old. You're on the wrong side of 30. For running backs, it's not good. It's a tough position to play. You're in a car crash every damn play, it seems like, right? So my thing is, I understood what Goody Mane, I understood what he did of saying, you know what, let's get younger at this position and let's get a guy who led the league in rushing just 2 years ago. Jacobs was a rushing champ, just 2 years removed from that. You put him in this scheme with this quarterback, this offensive line, and all of these weapons he has around him. He hasn't played with that with his entire time in Vegas.
Right.
So I was about to say Oakland, but in Vegas. They should be in Oakland, but it is what it is. I digress. But I just think that he's in a great situation, and I think the sky's the limit for Jacobs. And I think you're going to see a Jacobs that's going to return back to form that pretty much he did 2 years ago.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, fam. That's why they play the game.
Right.
We're going to end it on this note. The Kansas City Chiefs, by the way, congratulations, back-to-back Super Bowl titles. No team has ever three-peated in the history of the NFL. I believe that Kansas City has a great chance to do that, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but could it happen?
Yes.
Can I unequivocally feel confident about what I just said? Absolutely, because when you got Andy Reid, I call it the Patrick Mahomes pulse, right? As long as Mahomes has a pulse, and you got Kelsey on the field, I don't care who you playing. I don't care what the score is. I think Kansas City is prime for a three-peat. I still believe that they're going to win the AFC West for like the 10th consecutive year. I think the Chargers are on the come up. I think they're going to give them a run for their money.
Right.
But I believe Kansas City's going to lock up the division. If they can get home field, and they proved this past season it doesn't matter because they can go on the road and get it done, right? But if they can get home field, even if it's one playoff game in the divisional round, I think they're a threat. I think they're dangerous. I think they have a level of confidence. And I think Andy Reid has built that organization even after losing Bieniemy, because a lot of people didn't talk about that. When the offense struggled during times last season, even after losing Bieniemy, they still got it done. Didn't have any big-name receivers. Tyreek Hill was gone.
Right.
They had Valdez-Scantling. They had a lot of issues with drop passes. Kelsey was the bell cow, really, from a tight end perspective, but I just believe Kansas City has as great a chance as any team to hoist up the Lombardi Trophy and make it happen. So we're going to see how it plays out, but I believe Kansas City is my pick to do it again. I'm going to just put it out there.
Really?
I think they're going to do it again, man.
Ooh,
I think it's going to be a three-peat, y'all.
Ooh,
I think it's going to be a three-peat. I really do.
tough. That's going to be tough. I mean, can they do it? Yes. Will they do it? I'm not betting against Mahomes.
Can you? When the game's on the line?
No, the last 2 years he's had auto mechanics at wide receiver. Okay?
Yeah.
And he still won the Super Bowl. So I'm not gonna bet against Mahomes at all, man. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever do it. He's first ballot already.
He's already GOAT status.
Right. He's top 5 already. Top 3 to me already. So I can't bet against that. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, but we'll see. That's why you play the games. But yeah, Mahomes is different. He's different.
Yeah. So, it's going to be interesting. The 2024 NFL season is really only about 4 months away.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. But it's going to be some surprises, and
is.
and definitely some things that are going to happen. But that's why they play the game. And that's why y'all are watching Sports Hop. Before we go, man, let everybody know watching the show where they can find you on social media, man. Let them know what's happening with you.
Hey, you can find me Shad Eats at Shad Eats on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram. I'm a food content creator. Like my page, share my page. I'm doing God's work. That's what I always say. And side note, the Bears still suck. And this is the love era. Go Pack Go. Y'all know what it is.
All right, and you already know what's up with your player partner, Mack B. You can find me on Instagram at Mack B, MACKB as in boy, _, at Sports Hop Media on all platforms. We appreciate the love. We grinding, we building, we growing. You watching Sports Hop. I got my man Rashad on the couch. Y'all keep it locked.
Peace.
Thanks for watching Sports Hop. Subscribe here for all the latest news on hip hop and sports. It's your boy Mack B.